First of all, thank you, Corny, so much for organizing this event. Such an amazing opportunity for all of us, so I really, really appreciate it. And thank you, Andrew, for such an amazing intro. couldn't have done it better myself, so thank you for that. And welcome, guys. We're really excited to have you here. So as you said, my name is Spencer Maxwell, and today I want to share with you my story about starting a business. But before I get started, I wanted to talk a little bit about millennials. So pretty much everyone here, including myself, we are millennials, and we consistently get a really bad rap all over the world. So people say that we're lazy, we don't work hard, we always expect people to give us things for nothing in return. I'm sure some of you guys have heard these things before. And so when I was in high school, I started looking around thinking, you know what, maybe that is true. Maybe I'm surrounded by people that just aren't motivated. But then I really started to meet some people and met some really amazing people, and my perspective started to change a lot. I realized that a lot of people our age are amazing and they're doing amazing things. And so today, I'm hoping to inspire you guys as millennials to continue to be the most innovative generation that has ever walked this earth, because we're risk takers and we're willing to take that next step. So today, my story begins in Newmarket, which is about an hour north of Toronto. I'm sure you guys are familiar with that. My parents were marketing executives in downtown Toronto, and on September 11th of 2001, my mom was actually in New York in a building right beside the World Trade Center. And so her life was completely changed. She had to escape the country and try to get back to Canada. And so from that point on, she was constantly looking for the purpose of life. You know, why are we all here? And so later on in 2006, she and I actually went on a mission trip to Kenya. And so both of our lives were completely changed, especially I was only 11 years old at the time. And so seeing people live in poverty for the very first time was completely amazing. You know, it really took my breath away. And so from that point on, she and I went back, we talked to my dad, we convinced him to go to Africa, see what we had seen. Long story short, he ended up going over there and his life was changed as well. And so in 2007, my parents picked up from Toronto and we moved to Atlanta, Georgia. Okay, so we moved from Toronto to Atlanta, Georgia, because that's where an organization called Heart for Africa was based. And so they took over this organization, and so we all became missionaries. And so at the age of 12, I moved to Atlanta. And so from that point on, from 2008-ish until I was about 18 years old, I would go with my parents on 10-day service trips to Swaziland, South Africa, Malawi, and Kenya. And so the organization was based around partnering with orphanages and communities around these different countries. And so I, at the age of 11, was going over with them. I was super short and I was just completely oblivious to almost everything. I saw the stuff going on in Africa and it took my breath away, but I was young. I couldn't quite comprehend it yet. So from the time of age of about 11 until about 18, I helped my parents lead these trips over the summer. So for 10 weeks over every summer, we would lead trips of Americans, Canadians, and Taiwanese on 10-day service trips. And so by the age of about 16, you know, when we first started when I was 11, 12, I didn't have any responsibility. I was just a trip participant and I would go play with the kids and go plant gardens, that kind of thing. But by the age of 16, I really started to develop a leadership position within the company. You know, I was helping lead these trips actually. And so when we were in Swaziland, I would be responsible for anywhere from 50 to 100 Americans that would come over on these trips. So I really was passionate about it. I understood why we were there. And by the time I was 18, my parents actually decided to pick up and move to Swaziland. So they are over there right now. They take care of 170 children under the age of 7. They change something like 450 diapers every single day. Now, it's not my parents. We do have staff, but they do change a lot of diapers. And so this is 35 of them. The terrible twos, they're just learning how to walk and just learning how to talk, and do they ever talk? They're amazing. And so they're over there full time right now. Like I said, that was when I was 18 years old. So they're over there, they're there as we speak. So they picked up, I was still in Atlanta. I was at the time when I had to pick which university to go to. So I was looking at all the schools, and I ended up picking Florida State University because they're the only public university in America that has a Circus program. So who here is familiar with Cirque du Soleil? Pretty much almost everyone. It's a worldwide phenomenon right now. So when I was in high school, I got really involved with musical theater as well as circus-style arts because my high school was the only public school in America that had a Cirque program as well. So I learned how to do things like aerial silks, trapeze, steer wheel, lyra, many different apparatuses, which we'll get to in a little bit. So I picked Florida State because I said, you know what, if I can do a business degree and circus stuff at the exact same time, why not go to Florida State? So during my first year there, I got involved with the FSU Flying High Circus, and I realized that I wasn't getting as much out of it as I had hoped. I was hoping to be able to train on a wide variety of apparatuses, but they didn't offer that kind of thing. And so I started looking around. I was on Google looking for facilities where I could start to train, you know, kind of like a gymnastics facility. I had this thing in my head, I was looking for it, and I couldn't find it anywhere. As I'm sure you guys know, like, you don't see this stuff on every corner block like Starbucks. You know, it's very hard to find. Unless you're in Cirque du Soleil, it's really hard to do. And so I started looking around, and during my freshman year, I decided to open up a business that would actually teach people how to do stuff that they've seen in Cirque du Soleil. So that would be aerial silks, trapeze, a lot of the apparatuses I already mentioned. And so that was in December of 2012, and by May of 2013, I'd actually opened up a warehouse. And so this is my first key learning for you guys, since this is a student talks. The first one is to take risks. So, like I said, my parents were in Africa. All my extended family was in Canada. They actually live in Ottawa. And so I was the only Maxwell in America. So it was a big leap of faith for me, as well as being an undergrad, which is already stressful enough, as we all know. I decided to, you know what, how hard could it be to open up a business and start teaching people something that I really love and I'm really passionate about. So May 1st of 2013, I opened up this warehouse, slide, and this is what it looked like. And so starting from right to left, we had a floor for sear wheel, which I have a picture in a little bit, but it's basically a giant metal hula hoop that you can spin in. So if you think about a coin, if you spin a coin on a tabletop and it spins, 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 think about that huge with somebody inside of it. So that's what sear wheel is. We had trapeze, aerial straps, aerial silks, and Chinese pole. So I actually do aerial silks and I actually do trapeze. So I was one of the teachers, but I was also running the business full time. Let's go to the next slide. It just is a different perspective of what the gym looked like. On the right, you can see we had more of a fitness, weight training, that kind of thing for people as well. And then we had crash mats, we had martial arts and other normal gymnastic stuff like tumbling and hand-to-hand body balancing, that kind of thing. And so I opened up this business in 2013 and I ran it for about a year. And during that time, my primary goal was to target kids between the age of 6 and 18, primarily middle school and high school students. And so this whole program was geared towards people that did musical theater just like I did. And for nowadays, if you want to get involved with musical theater, you really do have to have a circus apparatus on your resume. Surprisingly enough, that's where the industry is going. So that was where I was really targeting. So my next key lesson for you guys is to be flexible. So we can go to the next slide. So this is aerial silks. We're coming to that learning, I promise. This is a few of my kids on aerial silks. We can go to the next one, which is a picture of sear wheel. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is Bobby Cookson. He's actually the #1 mono sear wheel competitor in the world. There is actually a competition for people that do this. There's only about 50 of them that actually can do this, and we were fortunate enough to have a really amazing kid, and he actually went to my high school, so he started learning this stuff with me. So that's what the sear wheel looks like. So yeah, this next key learning is to be flexible. So as I said, I really wanted to target middle school and high school students, but then when the parents were coming to drop off their kids, they started looking at what their kids were doing and thinking, you know what, Spencer, do you have anything like where I could come do it? Can we come take an aerial silks class with kids? And so I started to think, you know what, maybe there's an opportunity here for me to be able to start working with adults. Even though I wanted to focus on kids, maybe this could be a good opportunity for us. So the second key learning would be just be flexible when you get involved. So 72 years young, she came in and started doing aerial silks with us as well as sear wheel, okay? So we had people from all ages. Like I said, youngest was 6, the oldest was 72. And so the second key learning for you guys is to just be flexible. When you do decide to take that risk and follow your passion, make sure that you're allowing yourself to adapt to the circumstances. Because when I started the business, I had no idea that adults would even want to try to do this. So that's the second one. So as I continued to run this business, and I started opening up these doors for adults and that kind of thing, I started having a lot of other opportunity come about. We had Chick-fil-A, which, are you guys familiar with Chick-fil-A? We don't have it up here, but in the South, it is amazing, and it's chicken, it's McDonald's for chicken. And it's actually based out of Atlanta. So they decided to call us and asked if we could do Cirque-style leadership training at one of their leadership training events, I guess you can say, in Orlando. So they brought all 3,000 of their operators from all over America to this one location, and we were able to work with all of them on aerial silks and trapeze because they wanted to show that, you know, be flexible, you know, work with that kind of thing. And so they started to do this. But because we were flexible and we wanted to partner with adults, this opened up so many doors for us. And so that was top right, and on the left, that's some of the adults that got involved. And then in the very middle, this was another door that was open for us. So Musical theater, as I mentioned before, is starting to incorporate a lot of Circus style elements in their shows. And so many musical theater companies in Atlanta were starting to hire us. So for example, if you take the musical Chicago, which you may or may not be familiar with, it's notorious, they started to incorporate Circus style elements in those shows. So they would come to my company and say, hey, how do we get aerial silks at any point? And we were able to come in and choreograph some pieces for them. So by being flexible, it really opened up all these doors for us. And it started to become almost overwhelming. So I said I started this when I was 18 and I was in school full time. So by the time I was 19, all these opportunities were starting to open up. And I started to get really stressed. So I had a few business mentors that I would sit down with regularly. And I would explain this to them saying, I'm really, really stressed. I'm thinking about dropping out of university. They gasped and they couldn't believe that I would even consider it. But I explained to them, there's so much growth happening right now. Why wouldn't I put all my, undivided attention in this business if it's continuing to grow? But fortunately, I really listened to them, and they were amazing people. And they said, you know what? Worst case, the business doesn't grow as fast as you want it to, but in 2 years, you'll graduate with a degree in marketing, and your business will still be here. It's not like it was failing. It was going to be slower than I wanted. So I started to think, and I thought, you know what? Maybe that's true. Maybe I should consider that. And I decided to stay in for another year, or I stayed in school full time, and I stayed with the business for another year. So I was in the business for 2 years, and I decided to sell it. And this whole student talks is about how we got to Queens. And so in that process of selling the business, I decided, you know what, I really do want to do a graduate program of some sort. And so I graduated last December with a degree in marketing, and here I am at Queens doing a Master of International Business, which I'm super excited about. And so all this to say, the third key learning for you guys is to find some business mentors. So we often have people in our lives like parents that are really good for emotional support, but I really encourage you all to find some people that are in your field of operation or anything that's involved with whatever you're passionate about, and to get that kind of influence on you. Because for me, it really made the difference between staying in school and not. And I obviously wouldn't be here if I had dropped out of university. So my 3 main takeaways for you are to take risks, be flexible, and to find these business mentors. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, I think millennials consistently have a bad reputation, but I haven't seen this here at Queens. So I hope this talk somewhat inspired you guys to follow your passion and take that risk, because I believe that our generation will be the best generation that has ever walked this earth, because we're all innovators and we all are willing to take that risk. So thank you guys for your time. I really appreciate it. And I think we have a few minutes for questions, so thank you.